of the first official Makey Makey Google Hangout. We've
Yay!
got, yay! We've got people in from all over the world, it turns out. I'm calling in from New Zealand. My name is David Tenhaver. I'm the COO of Joy Labs, Makey Makey. And with me, I've got Liam Nielsen, who is our community manager. And just a little ways over there, or down there, hot off the satellite, literally from New York Toy Fair, we've got Jay Silver, the founder and CEO of Joy Labs. Now that's enough of the Makey Makey team right now. The real reason we're here is that we've got the Mouffe team, and Mouffe have created just an amazing application and an amazing use of Makey Makey, and we really want to talk to them and hear about their creative story. So this will be a Q&A session more than anything else. So the first obvious question is, what is Mouffe? What is the Daydream Simulator? And how did you guys kick it off and make it happen?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll start off. So Moof is a game that we made in a program called Critical Hit. It takes place at Concordia University, and it's a program that happens every summer where they have the opportunity to bring in a bunch of game developers and kind of artists and programmers and give them the opportunity to work on some weird projects that they might not necessarily have the opportunity to do. So this was a thing that we made in about a month and a half over the summer. There was 4 of us on the team, and Moof is a video game or an interactive experience that you play inside of a tent with a blanket for a controller, and the game is projected onto the ceiling of the tent, and there are buttons sewn into the quilt that you're lying on top of, so you're touching this quilt while you're lying inside of the tent, and you're kind of playing this game that's on the ceiling. You're playing music, watching animations play, watching creatures fly around in the environment and stuff like that. That's the basics.
And so, what role does Makey Makey play in the Mouffe game?
So we hooked up the blanket to the Makey Makey. So it's basically the thing that controls the blanket controller, essentially. It's mapped to just a keyboard thing, so we were able to test the actual visuals of the game just on the computer to start. And then it was like very easy on because it was so simply mapped and easy to set up because of the Makey Makey.
Oh, and so what other technologies have you used to make Mouffe happen?
Most of it is just whatever we have on hand. Sorry. The blanket is made, the patches, the buttons are made with conductive thread, and we had the opportunity at Concordia University and through Critical Hit and the Tag Lab there to get access to a giant embroidery machine that actually made all the detailed sewing on the buttons, and then I was the one who made all of the buttons, the rest of the quilts, and we had like conductive fabric as well. Hamish, maybe you can talk about the visuals a little.
The visual side? Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the other technology involved in Moof is just like all the animation on the screen. So the other thing that really makes Moof possible is a short throw projector to project onto the ceiling of the tent that we're projecting the game on. So the animations, it's all 3D to make use of the inherent immersion of 3D. And it's just basically a bunch of little creatures or objects or pretty little glowy things or things that seemed when we were coming up with them either like fun or playful or magical or something.
So the projection is from the exterior of the tent inside, is that correct, or is it from the interior of the tent onto the interior surface?
Yeah, the projector is, we kind of set it down in the back of the tent, and it projects from the inside of the tent onto a screen. We have Kim sewed together the screen that kind of fits perfectly onto the interior of the tent, and it projects it onto there.
And what technology did you use for the game environment? Is this a custom games engine that you guys have created, or have you used something off the shelf?
We're using an engine called Unity 3D, so it's easy to work with, works very well with 3D, which is what we decided to go with. Pretty straightforward in terms of the game.
And how did you manage to convince people that you wanted to make a daydream simulator? Right? You know, when you're making things like games and you're participating in known programs, you know, presenting something as out there as what you guys have created can sometimes be really tough. So tell us how you guys did it.
Well, Critical Hit as an incubator is set up originally for specifically for experimental games. So the scope of what they were looking for originally is something that's already kind of out there, and it's like a really good thing to have if you're kind of looking to innovate in the medium. So Mouffe itself came out of the program's first 4 weeks. There's like, we did sort of a jam game every week over. We were taught about the Makey Makey and how to use, you know, all these different peripherals to make really strange weeks. And it was originally Hamish that came up with the idea of a blanket controller, and then like that's covered. And then Chance later to develop the prototype that we had made only in a week, which was mostly like prefab things. So it was really good to have the Makey Makey because just me and Hamish and one other game developer on the original team didn't know how to program very well. So the Makey Makey was like really perfect for that. We just kind of hooked it up and did very simple programming, and it was great. But then for the last 6 weeks of the program, we were able to choose one of our 4 projects that we'd done it for a month and a half instead. And so at that point, we took the idea of a blanket controller, put it inside a tent, and like really retooled all of the visuals, and everything was like remade with Ben and Zach.
Cool. So tell me about the team. Tell me about the various skills each of you have got.
I guess we can just kind of introduce ourselves. So I was the programmer and designer on the game. I did all the implementing animation stuff, designing how the interactions would work, taking the input from the Makey Makey, and kind of working that into the game.
Hamish?
Sure. So I was the animator and artist, so I was doing all of the modeling and animation for all the creatures and making sure that when I exported them, they were easy for Ben to work with in Unity.
I was a fabricator, so I not any kind of specific. Like, I'm not that great at sewing, I guess, but I got really excited about making a blanket, and I also made the inside of the tent. So I was the one who set up all the stuff with the peripherals and all the physical setup.
And Hamish, what tools did you use for animation?
I was using Maya. It's a industry standard 3D software for animation modeling, lighting, all sorts of things. So I'm familiar with it from school, so that was just kind of my first instinct to use Maya for all the modeling. Oh no, look! Team member number 4 is here.
Oh, it's Zach!
Hi.
Welcome! Just in time. So, Zach, you tell us how you've contributed to the team and what your skill set was.
Sorry, the first part was?
So we're in the process of describing, you know, what skills each of you have brought to the design team, and so you know, keen to hear what skills you've brought to the team and how you've helped make Moof happen.
Oh, okay. All the skill sets I had going into the project was more along the lines of just sound design and along that field. We all have some artistic background, so we feed each other off of that. But yeah, mainly with sound.
I'm hearing a lot of echo. I'm not sure about you guys.
Yeah, I'm not too sure where it's coming from.
Somebody maybe needs to plug in headphones.
Is it maybe me? I'm not sure.
No, it was happening before you got here.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's all of us, I guess.
So you've launched your Indiegogo program, and you've exceeded your funding limit, your funding goals. Congratulations. What's the next step with Moof? What's your next goal?
So we are working on a stretch goal right now. We have about 3 days left in our campaign, so we're really hoping to hit that. But we're kind of trying to get some money to support ourselves in something that we've always felt like Moof could be, which is actually supporting new and different experiences than the one we made. So we did have a certain amount of time to make our own game to work in Moof, but now we have this platform and this weird controller, and we kind of want to see what other people would make for it and maybe support some new experiences for it. So we're trying to raise for our first stretch goal enough money to support kind of one of our favorite developers, Alice Effect, from here in Montreal, to make his own kind of game for Moof. So that's kind of the future of Mouffe, we think, is kind of trying to help other people make new games and stuff like that. But other than that, we want to kind of keep sending Mouffe to more festivals, different types of festivals and stuff like that. We're showing in Toronto for Vector Fest for the next month and a half, coming in the next couple of weeks. So that's what we're up to right now.
And I guess this is an obvious question that I should have asked right at the beginning, but what does Moof mean?
It doesn't mean it's, well, we like to tell people it's the sound of someone falling down on a plushy blanket, but we actually came up with the name pretty randomly.
Stick with that story. That's a good story.
It was originally, yeah, it was originally spelled Mooff, but we thought it kind of looked like moo off. At least I did. So we changed the spelling to also reflect also our sort of Canadian roots, French Canada. So yeah, we thought we had made up a word, but we also found out that there's other things called Moof after Googling ourselves. I think there's a famous politician or some sort of person named Chantal Mouffe. Apparently, there's also a cafe in Japan called Mouffe Cafe. So, and there's actually another game dev company in Montreal called Mouffer's Game. So that's a little bit close, but they make mobile games, and I don't think we have like an overlapping audience, so we can coexist peacefully, I think.
Got the opposite of a mobile game.
Yeah. Maybe we can collaborate with them someday, you know, like if we continue to sort of make games for Moof and kind of turn it into a weird console, there's no reason why we couldn't hook up something like some kind of networking thing where you lie on the blanket but you also control something on your mobile phone. I don't know.
Pretty fun.
So I've got kind of a technical question now, which is, you know, you guys have used Conductive Thread for the user interface, and you ran it through an embroidery machine, and you know, it's something that we've investigated at Joy Labs a couple of times, and it's, you know, it has some challenges to it. So I'd be kind of keen for one of you to describe that experience and touch on some of the challenges of running Conductive Thread through an embroidery machine, and how you may have solved some of those problems.
Oh, well, it was mostly me that had to deal with that. We originally had some Conductive Thread at the Tag Lab where we were hosted for Critical Hit, and it was actually thin enough to go through a sewing machine, so that was sort of the start for our very first prototype. That was where we started. And we kind of made these buttons by sewing in sort of like spiral patterns into fabric, but then as it turned out, you had to also be touching a ground the whole time, as that's how the Makey Makey is designed. So we originally had a pillow underneath your head that you could touch as the ground, and then you would touch the buttons and they would fire. But as we found out, people have very thick hair, and anybody with hair longer than the nape of their neck or like without skin contact sometimes had trouble firing the buttons. So for the final Moof, we came up with a different design, which is essentially, I mean, it's very basic, engineering, it's basically two parallel lines that run in a circle, and one of the lines is hooked up to the ground, and the other one is hooked up to one of the buttons on the Makey Makey, like an up arrow or something like that. And then ultimately, because your hand is larger, like while they're not touching each other, since your touch is going to be wider, the area your finger uses to touch thing is going to be larger than the space that's in between the two lines. You ultimately are the one that's connecting both the positive and the negative, the ground and the button. So it's essentially just a one-touch button. You don't need to be grounded to anything else. You don't need to be attached to the Makey Makey. You just have to touch the button. As for the embroidery machine, I may have been able to do that by hand, but it would have been very difficult and taken me a lot of precision that I don't necessarily have. And we also at that point ran out of the thin thread because it's actually a product that's discontinued now. So hopefully someday they'll make another consumer thread that will fit. But we were lucky enough to use a machine called the Tajima. It's a giant embroidery machine that takes up the entirety of a room. And how that works is that you just feed it a vector file, so like an Illustrator file of how you'd like your pattern to be, and then it just couches the thread on top. So rather than sewing in and out of the thread, it's a thread that gets laid down and then pinned on different spots with a non-conductive thread. So like a regular, but there's enough contact on top that it will still work the same way. You then have to come up with a pattern, and you figure out, where to go, and you have to direct it. It's sort of like trajectory. So it's easier if you kind of make like a one-stitch pattern all the way through. This is getting really nerdy, but it's like and then you can cut off bits and pull bits through and separate your buttons later. But I actually made a whole pattern that had an entirety of, I think, 9 buttons altogether. That was just one long thing, and then I cut it apart afterwards and made individual buttons and made, separated them with positive and negative sort of lines. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
And,
did you find that the thread was kinking in the machine, or because I've found that in the past, or did it flow freely through all the hoops?
Well, for the original one, the original thread that I had, it did kink a little. It broke a lot. So sometimes I would just have to sew very slowly, or if I was doing kind of a sharp turn, I would actually just on my regular old machine, like consumer machine, I would just sort of pull it around and it'd be fine. Whereas the thread on the Tajima doesn't kink because you're not sewing in and out. So it's just being laid on top. Plus it's I think it's a blend of something else, like a polyester or something, so it's not like a pure stainless steel thread. Or it kind of has like a waxy coating a little bit that seems to wear off. It's made for the Tajima specifically. Yeah, it's made for the Tajima specifically, so it's able to lay down metallic threads or other kinds of thread, even like thicker yarns and things like that, because it's not necessarily, the machine itself isn't necessarily made only for sort of these kind of like wearables and techie sort of uses. It is just also just for like the textile artists, fiber arts program at Concordia that do more traditional embroidery. So yeah, it could have with a lot of ease, very little difficulty. Yeah. So nerdy. Thread nerds.
No, this is a nerd hangout, so we're all fine. Right? That's the whole point of this exercise. Ben, can you give us an overview of using Unity and Makey Makey and how you've wired all of your work together?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's super simple, mostly just because the Makey Makey is so simple. But Unity just deals with keyboard input very easily. So using the Makey Makey was really straightforward. Just taking keyboard input directly into the game and then kind of dealing with it from there is pretty simple. Unity deals with all kinds of keyboard input types. So we were testing it with a keyboard initially, and then since it kind of took a while to actually get the quilt set up, for a long time we were kind of just lying in the tent with a keyboard on our laps, playing the game kind of with a keyboard. And then when we eventually had the quilts finished up, we hooked up the Makey Makey, and it was just like a really simple kind of transition from that point.
And I know that Unity can be hosted in a web browser and as a standalone app. What route did you guys choose?
We had no real need for it to be online, so we just chose to do a standalone app. This also kind of allowed us to be go a little bit crazier with effects and stuff like that. We kind of made it this kind of glowy space environment, so there's all these kind of glowing effects and shooting particles everywhere and stuff like that. So it is a little bit intense on the computers that are running it, but yeah, it's never been a problem.
Cool. So that's kind of the end of my questions, and so I was kind of keen to throw it out to any of the other people who are viewing. We've got the Q&A app, and which I think you've all got access to. Everyone got access, Liam?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to start putting the questions in there, that'd be good. And we've probably got another 5 minutes before we close things off. So if you've got some questions, please put them in the Q&A. So how many more days have you got on the Indiegogo campaign?
We have 61 hours left. Whatever that translates to. It's about 3 days left.
3 days.
Yeah. So,
and how have you found the Indiegogo process? And was it a good fit for the amount of money that you were looking to raise?
Yeah, I think it was a great fit. We chose it because we were looking for more of a donation-style campaign. We don't really have the ability to kind of give a lot of perks and rewards and stuff like that. Our campaign isn't so much people kind of paying to get something in the future. It's more people who want to support us and give money to kind of help us continue showing the game. Stuff like that, and that kind of fit perfectly in with Indiegogo projects in general. And yeah, the support was amazing. We cleared our goal within the first several days, and it's been really great.
And do you think that crowdfunding is a really good way of kind of getting the resources that you guys needed?
I think for experimental games, it's really good. I mean, obviously also for like smaller indie titles, but for Mouffe in particular, because it's so dependent on festivals and needing to travel around, and maybe if we are lucky, like we'll book more gallery shows or like kids events and things like that. It's a project that relies on it physically being in a space, so it's pretty much the only way to go, unless we're like charging admission. And of course, we'll still book. If you want Mouffe at your birthday party, we're not going to stop. We'll come up with a price for that. But we can't market Mouffe in a way that we can, I guess, like make bespoke Mouffes for people. So yeah, that sort of crowdfunding was like the only kind of way to go, really, and it was perfect.
Has anyone ever slept in the Mouffe tent?
Just us.
We don't want to admit to it.
that was a bunch of guilty
It seems like it'd be a cool way to wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were supposed to be working, we might have taken a few naps in there during development.
Get really
That's for sure.
sometimes though too. Yeah,
Uh,
but sometimes,
and-
like, if you're in there by yourself, but if you're there at a festival, sometimes we've had up to like 10 people try to fit inside the Mouffe tent, and everyone kind of strategically lies around where the buttons are so that they can touch them still, but people really like being in there with other people as well. Then
We
it's
actually-
kind of a party.
There was actually one situation where we had a bunch of kind of strangers sleeping, taking a nap in there, and it was I was showing it in Texas during a games festival called Fantastic Arcade, and we kind of ran into this issue that we hadn't really foreseen, which was showing it outside. There's actually this humidity problem where the blanket kind of becomes wet and basically starts malfunctioning, so all the buttons are firing at once because everything becomes conductive at that point. So
Yeah.
I was showing it outside. There was huge like rainstorms. It was so humid that the game was just unplayable at that point. So I just shut it down. This was at a party, and then there was probably like 6 or 8 kind of people that decided they needed to kind of take a break from the party and all climbed in the tent and just like took a nap together. So that was interesting and unique.
Are we going to see more instantiations of Mouffe around the world, or is there going to be just the one Mouffe? How is this going to propagate around the world?
We would love to. I guess the only issue is kind of finding any kind of financial support for a project like that is pretty difficult. We've been able to just pay for the equipment needed for this version of Moof with our Indiegogo campaign, but it would take a significant more than that for us to start making more of them. But we'd love to be able to keep working on the project.
Well, fingers crossed that money turns up.
That being said, I feel
that's
like
your next. Very good.
If rich donors are listening out there,
yeah.
now is the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ground floor, everyone.
Yeah.
But
well-
so if there's a big secret or anything, we'd love, if anybody wanted to make more, to learn how to make conductive sort of like soft objects, or and like to sort of make use of the Makey Makey in that way, in a really simple, sort of like fun, experimental way. Like, we wouldn't stop anyone. We aren't so stingy with our trademark that we wouldn't show you how to make a move, I guess. So if you want to make a Lincoln controller, you can just hit us up and we'll tell you. It's not like a huge secret or anything.
Are you looking at sharing some of your work on GitHub or something like that?
I don't know what there would be to share. I don't know. Ben, who's more your...
I think just the most important thing would probably be like the button design, because it did take us several iterations to kind of find a good design pattern for the buttons and everything. And Kim's design, it like looks great and it works really well. So, if anybody was looking for a design for kind of a conductive thread button, we would definitely share that, I think.
Cool. Okay, well that's kind of our time. I'd like to thank the Mouffe team. It's a fabulous project, and we're really, really grateful that you guys are doing such a marvelous job. Thanks for taking the time out to speak to us, and congratulations on hitting your Indiegogo goal. And we really look forward to seeing what you do next, and maybe talking some more later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us, Dave.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
Some people have asked us what are some of the favorite things we've ever seen done with the Makey Makey, and this has been on the list that we've handed to them as the question. Thank you guys for putting this beautiful thing into existence. I feel like the whole world is collaborating these days, so it's really nice.
Right.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys. Good luck at the toy fair.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.
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 Just hang up.